Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? Give me 1 second. See if some more people come in. How is everyone doing? Hopefully all is well. Let's go ahead and get started. Good Wednesday to you all. Today for What If Wednesdays, we are asking the question, did Nikola Tesla, did his experiment cause the Tunguska Blast? We're also talking about Jack the Ripper theories and what was the real Baker Street robberies all about. And last but not least, some creepy Men in Black encounters. On the second half of our show, it's your turn. Call in or click the link in chat and come on up on panel. Tell us your thoughts. Or if you've had any Men in Black encounters or anything strange happen to you, come up and share. Let's go ahead and get started. Why can't I hear anything? Good morning, everyone. It is time for the Shadows of the Moon show. As always, we are live on YouTube, DLive, Facebook, Twitch, and Mixer under the same name, Shadows of the Moon. So if you haven't yet, come on over and join the conversation. It is What If Wednesdays, where we question cryptoids, UFOs, aliens, cover-ups, and everything under the sun. So, do we have our thinking caps on? If so, let's begin the ride down the rabbit hole.
And now, coming to you live from Alaska, here's a woman that has been around many moons and has seen many shadows. Here's your host, Shadows of the Moon.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Well, it's probably not morning to you guys, but you know. How you guys doing?
I opened the note.
Okay. How is everybody? Hey, Ron over there. Stealing my points. How you doing? What is going on? How you guys been? So today, like I said, we are talking about Tesla's death ray. Yeah. Also, Jack the Ripper theories on who was Jack the Ripper. The Baker Street robberies. What was it really about? The mysterious Moon-eyed people and Men in Black encounters. I hope all is well. That's good to hear, Ron. Good. I'm glad to hear you're doing good. Shall we go ahead and get started? Oh, thank you for the lemons.
Oh my.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much.
Oh my.
Oh my. So let's go ahead and get started. First, like I said, we're talking about Tesla's death ray. Did Nikola Tesla's death ray experiment of his death ray cause the Tunguska Blast? On June 30th, 1908, a giant explosion flattened over 800 square miles of forest near the Tunguska River in Siberian Alaska. The area of the blast was extremely remote, but the devastation was immense. An estimated 80 million trees were flattened and a whole herd of deer wiped out. The magnitude of the blast was thousands of times greater than the nuclear bomb dropped in Hiroshima, and the impact was felt as far as a field as Great Britain. Okay, no worries, Ron. No worries. Had it occurred just minutes later, it would have destroyed the whole of St. Petersburg and killed millions of people. Whilst it quickly became apparent something monstrous had happened in Tunguska, I have a problem with that. The area of the blast remained inaccessible until the first expedition there in 1927. The 1927 investigation began nearly a century of debate about what caused the blast, the explanations ranging from comets and meteors to expulsions of natural gas and even mini black holes. One of the alternative theories about the Tunguska revolves around pioneer inventor Nikola Tesla. Tesla was a scientific genius credited for several important innovations in electricity, magnetism, and radio. For many years, he explored ideas for the wireless transmission of electricity. In 1901, he began construction of the 57-mile-high Wardenclyffe Tower in New York. Obstinately for telegraphy, yeah, you know that word. Telegraphy, he used the tower to further his experiments in the transmission of electricity. By 1906, his chief financial backer, J.P. Morgan, grew dissatisfied with Tesla's experiments and withdrew funding. Tesla plans were in ruin. He became desperate and, according to biographers, suffered a nervous breakdown. Of course, there's Nikola Tesla himself. Great man. It has been suggested that Tesla tried to salvage his work at Wardenclyffe and revived his fortunes by staggering an audacious publicity stunt. Tesla had become convinced his wireless electricity transmitter could be used as a weapon, able to transmit an electrical wave through the earth of such intensity it could destroy a target 100 miles away. Like the rest of America, Tesla was gripped with the exploits of the Admiral Robert Peary in his assault on the North Pole. At the time of the Tunguska Blast in 1908, Peary was camped out on Ellesmere Island in preparation for his bid to reach the pole. And that's Admiral Peary at the North Pole in 1909. Tesla had made cryptic remarks about contacting Peary somehow, and he had instructed him to watch the tundra for signals. What better way for Tesla to demonstrate the awesome power of his device to the world would be that of fire a bolt of energy towards Ellesmere and rip up some ice or cause a light show. Advocates of the theory that Tesla was behind the Tunguska Blast claim his publicity stunt went drastically wrong. He concentrated waves of electricity overshooting his target and instead causing the explosion at Tunguska. Could Tesla really have been responsible for the Tunguska Blast? So the evidence for the claims, Tesla claims, the idea of the death rays was prevalent around the time of the Tunguska. Several inventors, notably Harry Grindle Matthews in England, claimed to have invented such a weapon. In 1907, there was much speculation in the press that the explosion that destroyed the French battleship Iana in March was caused by some kind of wireless energy wave. Right, Ron? Don't let Russia know they sue. With Tesla's name even mentioned in connection with the disaster. So, of course, there's, death rays were a popular concept in Tesla's time. Tesla himself gave rise to much of the speculation by repeatedly claiming his electricity transmission device could be used as a direct energy weapon. Writing to Liberty magazine, he explained, "My invention requires a large plant, but once it is established, it was possible to destroy anything, men or machines, approaching within the radius of 200 miles. Tesla wrote several letters to the New York Times, in which he explained on the potential of its invention as a death ray. As to projecting wave energy to the particular region of the globe, this can be done by my devices. The spot in which is desired effect to be produced can now be calculated very closely, assuming the accepted terrestrial measurements to be correct. Once it is established, it will be possible to destroy anything, men or machines, approaching within a radius of 200 miles. Just 2 months before Tunguska, he wrote tellingly, "This is not a dream. Even now, wireless power plants could be constructed by which any region of the globe might be rendered uninhabitable without subjecting the population of other parts to serious danger or inconvenience." Did Tesla, beset by financial problems and desperate for his Wardenclyffe plant to succeed, use it for precisely the purpose he described to the New York Times? Number 2, doubts over the meteorite theory. Although the prevailing consensus as to the cause of the Tunguska Blast is the explosion of a comet or meteorite in the atmosphere above the area, there are numerous reasons to doubt this. Several eyewitnesses' reports described unusual and prolonged lights to the sky, both before and 4 days after the impact, quite unlike those to be expected from a meteorite or comet. Even as far afield as England, the sky was lit up for days afterwards. Widespread reports of night turning into day flooded into the newspapers. One correspondent recounted how he was able to read a book illuminated purely by the night sky. Tesla specifically cited the ability of Wardenclyffe to light up the atmosphere on several occasions. I have planned many details of the plant which would be amply sufficient to illuminate the entire ocean so that such a disaster of the Titanic would not be repeated. Of course, there's Wardenclyffe. Many of the eyewitnesses also describe earth-shaking even before the explosion. Again, Tesla described how his device could shake the ground, even boasting on one occasion that he could shake the Empire State Building in its foundations. The meteorite theory is also undetermined by the fact that no blast, crater, or trace of any meteorite has ever been found, despite exhaustive searches. If, however, Tesla could transmit a direct energy beam through the ground, it would leave no trace or crater. Geological alignment. It has been pointed out that a line drawn between Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower and Tunguska's passes through the location of the supposed target of his energy beam, Ellesmere Island. While the correlation isn't exact, it's an interesting coincidence. Did Tesla intend to shake up the ice at Ellesmere, overshoot his target, and accidentally cause the devastation of the Tunguska? Evidence against pseudoscience. The concept that electrically could wirelessly transmit over long distance is now discounted as a pseudoscience by most scientists. Hey, Tamara, how are ya? Whereas Tesla did successfully demonstrate short-range transmission of electricity, he was never able to demonstrate any ability to transmit over great distances. Ron says, I was wondering, there is a theory that ancient civilization had weapons underground there. Comes up its dome, shoots spaceships down. Oh, good theory, Ron. I will definitely write that down and look into that. That's pretty cool. I will definitely, that's pretty cool. Whereas Tesla did successfully demonstrate short-range transmission of electricity, he was never able to demonstrate any ability to transmit it over great distances. I don't care what anybody says, I still love Nikola Tesla. Tesla, always desperate for an audience for his inventions, would have widely advertised the technology he had really perfected as he claimed. Tesla was an eccentric individual. He had visions, claimed to receive signals from extraterrestrials, and somewhat oddly was in love with a pigeon. He also he was also an invert, self-publicist, notorious for making far-fetched and exaggerated claims which he could not back up. For example, he once claimed that he could fire an energy beam to the moon and disturb its surface. He was so underrated, you know. I think Tesla had a lot of ideas that if he had more time and understand, you know what I mean? I believe he could have definitely made these things, you know, if he didn't already. Number 2, death rays. There have been so many attempts to produce the kind of death ray proposed by Tesla over the years, but no such weapon has ever been produced, despite its obvious military application. And that's the thing, you know, there's people, all his records, most of his records was destroyed. So, I mean, their attempt, I think they don't really look into his inventions very clearly. Do you know what I mean? Like, they don't test them a lot. They just say, oh, it didn't work, let's go on to the next. Just my thoughts. Washington didn't get in the way, our lives would be different. Definitely. I agree, Ron. I definitely agree. Death rays. Okay. The vast amount of energy Tesla's death ray would require to operate, as he boasted, would appear to rule out as any kind of viable device. It is estimated to produce an estimated 10 megaton blast recorded at Tunguska. Weidencliff would need to transmit billions of watts worth of power, thousands of times more than New York power grid was capable of producing. I think he found a different way. That's just my take. So, do you think that Nikola Tesla's death ray caused the Tunguska Blast? Exactly, Ron. Tesla's paper was taken by Trump's uncle for our government. Yeah, I mean, they did. They took it all. You know.
Oh my.
Thank you for the lemon, Miss Carrie. How are you guys doing? Welcome, welcome.
Oh my.
You are so awesome. Thank you so much for the lemons. I appreciate that. So you don't think so, Ron? I don't know. I figured I'd bring up that article because of us talking about it, I think, Monday? Love you too, Miss Carrie. Love you guys as well. Aw. So good to see you. Since it was brought up, I happened to read this and I was like, okay, we'll discuss this, definitely. So the next part of the article is about Jack the Ripper theories. Do you guys, I don't know if you guys have really, paid attention to Jack the Ripper or whatnot. Do you guys have a person that you think is Jack the Ripper? I hear you, Miss Carrie. Mine's getting, every few days mine flip-flops. She said, we are good. Our days and nights are backwards. I totally get that. It's easy to do. It's easy to do. Mine every few days flip-flops, where I'll be fine. Like yesterday, I was fine. And then all of a sudden I won't be able to go to sleep till 4 o'clock in the morning, you know? It's like, what the hell? So, do you guys by any chance have a Jack the Ripper theory of your own? Let's go ahead and get into this. Portrait of a Killer, 6 chilling Jack the Ripper theories. It has been nearly 130 years since the mutilated corpses of 5 women, all prostitutes, were discovered in London's Whitechapel district. Due to the brutal conditions of the victims, slashed and in some cases ripped wide open with major organs removed, the police called their suspect a Ripper. And with that, the world's most notorious serial killer was born. Before I forget, let me share the link in chat with everybody of the Tesla. If you want to go read it, it's from the friends over at the Unredacted, which is a great site. Let me go ahead and put that into chat. Okay. Before I forget, this one comes from the website thelineup.com. So the case of the Jack Ripper was torn in its way through popular culture, inspiring everything from the stories of Sherlock Holmes to Hannibal Lecter. Historians and true crime writers alike have offered their theories to the identity of the Ripper. Assembling a suspect lists over 100 names. Potty monkey. Yet the question remains just who was the man or woman behind the crimes. While it's far too late to bring the Ripper to justice, here are 5 of the most compelling Jack the Ripper theories from a member of a royal family to a well-respected English painter. Perhaps he or she can finally be brought to justice in spirit if the case is ever solved. So the royal prince Albert Victor. Even the royal family is not above suspicion. Queen Victoria's grandson, Prince Albert, suffered from syphilis, and his sexual activities and rumor patronage of prostitutes placed him in the vicinity of the crimes and victims. In 1970, a British physician named the syphilis-induced insanity could have driven Prince Albert to commit murder. See, people didn't let him out of the can. Anyway, others have argued that his status as a royal aided to a massive cover-up and explains why the Ripper was never identified. Then we have the physician, Sir William Gall. The nature... Yeah, he's in a can. My mom used to tell me that joke all the time. The nature of the murders indicate that the perpetrator had a medical knowledge, someone like a surgeon or a coroner. The motive claimed by the movie in 2001's From Hell is that Queen Victoria wanted Prince Albert's secret marriage with a former prostitute suppressed. So she ordered the royal family's physician, Sir William Gall, to enact a murder rampage through Whitechapel. Gull then sent a letter to police penned in an illegible scrawl, now known as the From Hell letter, to throw authorities off track. The painter, Walter Sickert. In one of the more intriguing theories, Patricia Cornwell, in her 2002 book, Portrait of a Killer, Jack the Ripper, Case Closed, argues that painter Walter Sickert was Jack the Ripper. She points to possible clues in the artist's own painting, many of which seem to mirror Ripper's crime scenes. In one painting, a woman is stretched across the bed, echoing the position of the final Ripper victim, Mary Jane Kelly. Another depicts a well-dressed man at the foot of the bed with his head hung and his hands clasped, while a naked woman lies rigidly behind him, her face turned in the shadow. And that's the picture. Walter Sickett's 1908 picture, What Shall We Do to Pay the Rent? Alternatively, the Camden Town murder. Pretty wild, right? It's not the one who moved over here, Ron. Are you the one that's talking about, are you talking about, oh, what the hell's his name? He's married, he's married. He's buried in Mount Hope Cemetery in Rochester. I know, I've been to his grave. Talbert, is that his name? Talbert, yeah. He's not in this list, but I'll bring him up. So Sickert himself made no secret of his fascination with the Ripper case, going as far as to dub one of his paintings Jack the Ripper's bedroom. Still, skeptics counter that the similarities are more coincidences. Nothing the ominous Sickert painting display above is actually related to the infamous Camden murder of 1907. Undeterred, Cornwell sought to further prove her theory. She analyzed a series of letters sent to Scotland Yard that many believe had been penned by Ripper. Cornwell compared the artifacts to Sickett's own writing paper. The two reams bore the same rare watermark, which was made by Sickett's father. If a jury had seen that, Cornwell said, they would have hung him. The merchant, James Maybrick. 3 years before Ripper murders occurred, a rash of eerily similar serial murders, this time of the servant girls, took place in Austin, Texas, dubbed the Servant Girl Annihilator. The murder was never brought to justice. In her book, Jack the Ripper, The American Connection, unless you're talking about this one, Shirley Harrison argues that the Austin killer and Jack the Ripper are one and the same. She purports to have evidence that her suspect, a cotton merchant named James Maybrick, was in Austin and London at the time of both crimes. Also, H.H. Holmes was also, I know, his grandson, I can't think of his name, thought he was Jack the Ripper as well. I can see his face. I can't remember his name. Here's another surgeon, Sir John Williams. Yet another deadly doctor. Theory posts that Ripper was Sir John Williams, Queen Victoria's royal surgeon. Much of the case stems from the fifth victim by Antonia Alexander, a writer who claims to be great-great-great-granddaughter of Ripper victim Mary Jane Kelly. Alexander's investigation began after she found a locket of Riley's containing what seems to be a photo of Sir John, proof that the two were close and possibly secret lovers. Sir William specialized in obstetric surgery and believes of the theory asserts that he butchered the woman of Whitechapel to inspect their reproductive organs in hopes of curing his wife Lizzie Williams' infertility. I could understand that. And then the woman, Lizzie Williams. Then again, perhaps Jack the Ripper was actually a Jill. Some have proposed that the real reason the Ripper case went cold in London police were looking for the wrong man. A retired lawyer was put forth the theory that Lizzie Williams, the wife of aforementioned Ripper suspect Sir John Williams, was driven to murdering prostitutes out of sheer rage and jealousy. 3 of the Ripper victims had the reproductive organs torn from the bodies. As stated in the Sir Williams theory, Lizzie was infertile. The Lizzie theory is explored at length in Jack the Ripper, The Hand of a Woman by John Morris. Yeah, so, I mean, you never know. Now, Tunley. Oh, what is... There we go. Jack the Ripper. Yeah, Tumblety. Francis Tumblety was an Irish-born American medical quack who earned a small fortune posing as the Indian herb doctor throughout the United States and Canada. He's at Holy Sepulchre Cemetery, which is also Mount Hope. It's right on the cusp. In Rochester, New York. He was one that they suspected for being Jack the Ripper. They had a lot of suspects. A lot of suspects. Here, I'll put this in the link, or I'll put the link in the chat. If you guys want to check it out yourself. There was definitely, yes, a lot of suspects. So who do you guys think? Do you guys think there's a link to any one of these? Do you think it was a duo? Maybe it was the husband and wife. What do you guys think? You know? You never know. It's crazy. It's crazy, right? We still don't know who was Jack the Ripper. My next story. Yeah, it could be the couple. Yeah, definitely. You know, I mean, they're both the reproductive organs. You never know. I mean, maybe they were studying them to figure it out. I don't know. Or maybe she just killed the first one, his lover there, and then got a feel for killing people. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird situation, and I don't think it'll ever be solved. So next we're talking about the Baker Street robberies. The Vault of Secret was the 1971 Lloyd's Bank safety deposit robbery, a covert operation into retrieving compromising photos of the royalty. And this comes from the Unredacted as well. With the robbers broadcasting their crime live over the airways, it's a mystery why police never caught the Baker Street gang red-handed. The safety deposit box raid in 1971 is one of the most baffling in British criminal history, and rumors that a true purpose had been covered up by British establishment persist to this day. The problem is that they should have never gotten away with a penny. In the early hours of September 11th, 1971, as the robbers were tunneling into a safety deposit box vault at Lloyd's Bank on Baker Street, a near amateur radio ham was listening to their every word. I thought I saw something pop up there. Sorry, guys. The gang were using walkie-talkies to communicate, and the radio hobbyist Robert Rowlands had accidentally turned into their transmissions. Rowlands notified the police, who were slow to believe his claim that he had happened upon a genuine robbery in progress. Eventually persuaded, they set out on a frantic search of hundreds of London's banks in an attempt to thwart the raid. They didn't succeed. Rowlands had informed the police that the range of the transmission meant the robbers must be nearby, within about a mile of his Wimpole Street flat. For reasons never adequately explained, they decided to spread the net out over a 10-mile radius instead, vastly expanding the number of banks that would have to be searched. With limited resources and the need to ask permission of each bank to search it, they failed to stop the gang in time. The raid at Baker Street branch of Lloyd's Bank was then Britain's biggest and most ambitious. The thieves crowbarring open 260 boxes and making away with the estimated of 30 million in today's money. That's 30 million pounds, I believe. I don't know what that would be to us. It caused a seismic shockwave across the banking industry and panic amongst the rich and powerful clientele who had their most private and possible even illegal valuables stored in the vaults. That's the bank itself, and it had police photos showing how the robbers tunneled into the bank. So, they tunneled entrance here, the length of 40 feet. They crawled through here. Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy. From the beginning, it was clear that this was no ordinary heist. It was far more complex, elaborate, and well planned than anything that could ever been seen or had been seen in the country before. The gang had leased a leather goods shop 2 doors down from the bank and spent 3 months studiously digging a tunnel from the basement to the shop, beneath the neighboring Chicken Inn and into the vault. That's crazy. So this is where I'm taking it. This where, yeah, or over here, maybe. That's just nuts. I mean, that's elaborate. That's not even, wow. The robbery required a hitherto unseen level of patience and expertise from the thieves, utilizing then hard-to-obtain radio communications equipment, expensive digging machinery, and even a thermal lance. It was a professional and carefully planned operation, but one that raised some nagging questions that had never been satisfactorily answered. Because these robberies weren't criminal masterminds, or because these robbers weren't criminal masterminds, their unbelievable heist made them appear. They were small-time crooks, petty thieves, and con men who have never done anything even remotely on the scale of the Baker Street job before. How had a gang managed to graduate to such a big league criminality in such an apparent case? And with such apparent ease, even. Even the culprits knew what they had pulled off was impressive. Writing, "Let's see how Sherlock Holmes solves this one" on the wall, a reference to the Conan Doyle story, The Red-Headed League, which involves the detective foiling a similar bank robbery. That's messed up. Let's see how, oh my God. The Metropolitan Police didn't need the world's greatest detective in the end. At least some of the culprits were eventually caught. One of the gang, Desmond Wolfe, had made the elementary mistake of hiring the leather goods shop that served under the base under his own name. Police eventually tracked down the other gang members from their association with Wolfe. Anthony Gavin, Thomas Stevens, and Reginald, no relation by the way, Reginald Tucker, spelt differently. Reginald Tucker was substantially arrested, convicted, and sentenced to 12 years in jail for their roles in the Baker Street robbery. Was clever, Tamara, very clever. Unlike many other high-profile criminals, such as the men behind the Great Train Robbery, the gang have remained resolute, discreet over the years. Despite masterminding the most audacious crime in British criminal history, none of the men have ever talked. No big paydays from the tabloids to tell their story, no lucrative book deals. Quietly released a few later, that disappeared into obscurity. But it seemed none of the men were ever short of money. Nothing taken from the robbery, money, jewels, or anything else was ever recovered. Had the gang somehow managed to retrieve their booty after their release, right under the noses of the police? Or had they been bought off by someone? It was the questions like that began a series of rumors, some probably myths, others legitimate and troubling questions that remain unanswered. Was there more to this daring crime that met the eye? Did the British government even slap a gagging notice on the press to prevent them reporting the real truth behind the robbery? Police always suspected that not only were there others involved, but that there must have been a mastermind behind such a daring raid. Such was its expense and complexity to seem unlikely to have been hatched by small-time operators without help from someone. But the question is who? Yeah, who bought all that equipment? Were they just bored? Maybe. But I mean, who bought all the digging equipment and the thermal, that's just crazy. That's a lot of money, especially back then. The royal scandal theory is depicted in the 2008 The Bank Job. Speculation about who was really behind the raids has led some sensational theories. What if the real target of the robbers was not the loot, but something even more valuable? Exactly, Ron. Bought off from the elite to get rid of compromising photos. Yeah, that's where yeah. After the raid, many of the clientele did not come forward to report what they had lost. Safety deposit boxes were designed to be discreet and were often used to store sensitive items and documents to their owners that their owners would often rather not admit existed. Was the target something so sensitive it could be used in blackmail? Blackmailing one of the important clients? The most famous version of this theory was turned into entertainment film called The Bank Job, basically loosed on the Baker Street robberies. It alleges that British intelligence had hired the gang to raid the safety. Hey, Jim! Oh, thank you for the ice cream. Oh, thank you so much. Hey, Shrimp Sack, how are you? Welcome. I got my chat's backwards here. So like YouTube's over here and DLive's over here. And usually they're switched. So I'm like, but thank you so much, Jim, for the ice cream. I hope all is well with you guys. So the most famous version of the theory was turned into entertaining film in 2008 called The Bank Job. Basically loosed on the Baker Street robbery, it alleges that British intelligence had hired the gang to raid the safety deposit boxes at the bank to retrieve pornographic photographs of a prominent member of royalty. Although not named, rumors have circulated for decades that this royal was the Queen's sister, Princess Margaret. Hey, Blue, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. Margaret had already skirted dangerously close to the scandal in the 60s and 70s. She was notorious for her louche lifestyle and association with several disreputable and criminal figures. It's highly probable MI5, the UK's international intelligence service, was at least keeping tabs on Margaret. Was the robbery an operation to prevent a highly damaging royal scandal become public? Dun dun dun! The bank job claims to be more than just speculation. Writers Dick Clement and Ian LeFrancis, I don't know if that's how you say it, and I'm sorry if it's not, say they based their script on inside information from a journalist who was involved with the story back in 1971. In the film, an underworld figure named Michael X is storing sexual photographs of Margaret taken on her holiday home in Mystique in the Baker Street vault with the intention of using them to blackmail the British establishment into turning a blind eye to his criminal activities. Did this explain how well-funded the operation was? Was the police seem to be reluctant to catching the gang? and the supposed Dean notice placed on the press preventing them from reporting what really happened? So we have the evidence for the scandal. Despite her immense privileges, Princess Margaret was a tragic figure. The Queen's younger sister would never become monarch herself and failed to carve any kind of meaningful role for herself in the royal hierarchy. Bereft of sense of purpose, the young princess would increasingly lose herself in a life of hedonism and become notorious for her drinking, partying, and succession of lovers. At her hideaway in the Caribbean island of Mystique, Margaret would entertain a string of young men, society figures, and even those from the criminal fraternity, like the infamous Cockney gangster John Biden. Tales of Margaret's exploits on Mesquite are legendary. One occasion, she photographed several of her male friends naked on a beach. Another time, Biden performed his famous party trick involving hanging five half-pint glasses from his penis. Much of Margaret's delight. Wow. Yeah. Some biographers now believe Margaret had even an affair with Biden, something he would occasionally brag about himself. Princess Margaret was said to have an affair with the notorious gangster John Biden. Right, Ron, yep, theory that she had a child out of wedlock. Yep, sure enough. Whatever the case, she had already compromised herself. A photograph of Margaret with the then wanted criminal Biden was widely circulated in Fleet Street. Although not actually printed by the press until many years later, such a photograph would have been a scandal in itself, but did even more salacious pictures exist? Considering what we already know about Princess Margaret, it's certainly plausible photographs extreme enough to be used for blackmail or cause a major publicity scandal may have existed. The bank job exactly such photographs are in the possession of an underworld figure named Michael X. Real name Michael de Freitas, Michael X was a London gangster, drug dealer, and slumlord in the 1960s and 70s. X became a minor celebrity in the late 60s by setting up a London branch of the Black Power movement and was briefly feted by the press, such as figures as John Lennon and Yoko Ono. According to the bank job, Michael X kept compromising photos of Margaret taken on Mystique in his safety deposit box at the Baker Street Bank. He planned on using them as blackmail material to prevent prosecution for his criminal activities. Fearful of a major national scandal, they are made public. MI5 orders the raid to retrieve them. Shortly after the robbery in 1971, Michael X was allowed to leave England for his native Trinidad, despite the fact that he was due in court on charges of extortion. A few months later, the commune he started there burned down in mysterious circumstances. Michael X as depicted in the bank job. The story had fatal consequences for Michael X when police found the hacked bodies of two of its members buried in shallow graves in the property. He was charged with their murders and hung for the crime in 1975. Although little or no hard evidence exists in the public domain for the scenario depicted at the bank job, the writers of the film, Dick Clement and Ian Lafrance, says they have a deep throat style informant who was involved in the original investigation to confirm the events depicted in the film. The informant was actually Evening Standard journalist George McIndoe, who claimed to have learnt about the salacious photos after getting to know two members of the Baker Street gang in 1970s. With none of the men inside themselves talking and Michael dead, it's clearly hard to verify what McIndoe told the writers. One curious piece of circumstantial evidence does exist, however. Michael X MI5 file is locked up until 2054, 83 years after the robbery and 79 years after his death. The secrecy over the file of the obscure London gangster seems unwarranted. Could it be there is something so explosive to those files that might still be embarrassing decades after everyone involved is dead? In later years, a far more sinister variation on the royal scandal theory has emerged. I just lost my track of thought. Oh, okay, sorry. Brian Reeder, a gang member not captured by police in 1971, says the men found sickening images of child sex abuse involving prominent politicians in the safety deposit boxes. The now elderly Reeder made the claims at his trial for involvement in another famous robbery, the 2015 heist of the safety deposit boxes at London's Hatton Garden. He said the gang at Baker Street were so disgusted by the pictures, they left them scattered out on the floor of the vault for the police to find. That's pretty messed up. If this is true, the resulting scandal would far eclipse even salacious pictures of a prominent royal. Allegations that there was a systematic cover-up of child sex ring at the highest level of British politics persist even today. If evidence for such a ring had been found scattered on the floor in a bank vault in 1971, it would certainly have been concealed by the authorities. The role of the British intelligence in such a scenario could take two forms. The first is that the raid was a stunt orchestrated by them to provide blackmail opportunity against high-ranking politicians. More likely that it is discovering the materials in the aftermath of the robbery. MI5 swooped in to aid the cover-up and ensure a scandal did not break through that would potentially bring down the British government itself. Number 2, a blind eye. On the morning of Saturday, September 11th, 1971, the Metropolitan Police knew two solid facts about the bank robbery currently in progress somewhere in London. First, the culprits were attempting to tunnel their way inside a safety deposit vault, and secondly, that the vault was located within a mile flat of the CB radio ham Robert Rowland's. If the police had used this information, they would have almost certainly have caught the men before they even made it to the bank. Instead, they sent their men on a wild goose chase of more than 170 banks across 10 miles of northwest London, massively decreasing the odds that they would find the correct location in time. Robert Rowlands gave the police all the information they needed to capture the bank robbers. Here he is with his ham radio. Despite this, sometimes in Sunday morning, police did search the Baker Street Bank at Lloyd's Bank, with the gang just a few feet away behind the 15-inch thick door of the vault. The bank was dismissed as the location of the robbery because there was no signs of a break-in. Whether this was an honest mistake, incompetence, or a deliberately blind eye turned is now impossible to say. But the police, knowing from the transmission on Rowland's radio that the gang were trying to dig their way directly into the vault rather than go through the front door, it's staggering that the search was deemed sufficient to dismiss the bank as a possible location of the robbery. That's messed up. Number 3, D-Notice. One of the most persistent rumors about the Lloyd's Bank robbery is the D-Notice was placed on the press to prevent them from fully reporting the details of this crime. A D-Notice is a request from the government to the press not to report on a specific event that is deemed a risk to national security. While technically voluntary, the UK press would rarely break a D-Notice, and several are still used and in effect today. It is not contested that such request was made to the press regarding the reporting of the Baker Street robbery. The robbery was known about for almost 2 days before the news of it broke on the morning of Monday 13th, the September 13th. During this period, it is thought a D notice was in effect to prevent any reporting possibly tipping the criminals off. The heist was then widely reported for a while. The BBC and most of the national press reported on the crime. After that, news of the raid virtually vanished from the UK media. Radio ham Robert Rowlands, whose recordings of the robbery were first alerted police, says the tapes and radio equipment were then seized and a D notice placed on further reporting. Was there something so sensitive in the boxes that it had to be covered up? I wonder what those are, Unlike similar heists, which have remained in the headlines for months and years afterwards, where very little was reported about the robbery again until the publicity generated by the release of the bank job in 2008. One small story did appear in the Times in 1973 reporting on the conviction of 3 men involved in the raid, but this looks like a curiously scant return for such a sensational crime. In recent years, the tabloid Daily Mirror has revealed that they or other major newspapers of the times were approached by senior government officials and asked to drop the story. It is hard to understand why would they do this if there wasn't some element of national security involved. No other major bank robbery in British history has faced the reporting restrictions that seem to be evident here. Was this too a cover-up by the robbery's true intent? Or to cover up what the thieves say they found in the security deposit box and left out for the police to find? So that was the evidence for. Here's the evidence against. A schoolboy error. MI5 is renowned in the intelligence world for its skill, efficiency, and cunning. When someone working at the MI5 cover operation leases out a shop as a front for their illegal activities, they generally don't do it in their own name, allowing for their swift capture of police. Yet that's exactly what the gang member Desmond Wolfe did, with the tunnel leading straight from the bank vault to the basement of the Lisac leather goods shop. As he leased, he was essentially caught red-handed. Wolfe was quickly apprehended, and the other gang members, all known associates of Wolfe, soon followed. It seems unthinkable that the MI5 would be behind such a plan unless the gang agreed to deliberately take the fall for them. Well, they seriously, even though they were caught, the stuff was never found, right? No serious intelligence operation would make such a basic mistake otherwise. There's no doubt that the Baker Street heist was brilliantly executed in some respects, but in other ways it was sloppy and amateurish. Allowing every detail of the plan to be broadcast over airwaves seems another mistake uncharacteristic for a professional state intelligence operation. By 1971, CB radio was already massive in America and beginning to take off in the UK, despite being technically outlawed. The robbers were talking to each other on open mics, potentially allowing any of thousands of people in their area to hear their chatter. If MI5 were involved in planning the robbery, they made some implacable errors which led to certain capture of their thieves. The possibility that them getting caught and going to prison was part of the deal can't be overlooked, but it is a hefty price to pay, however much the men were paid. I don't know. I said they were never without money, though. They were never broke. And they got money. I don't know, man. What do you guys think? Number 2, a conspiracy of silence. The conspiracy theory that British intelligence was involved in the robbery to cover up a royal scandal is not outlandish, but it also revolves around their ability to suppress sequential reporting using the D-notice system. If they had such a powerful mechanism to cover up their activities, it begs the question to why the robbery was even needed. Lord Boothby's sexual misdemeanors were never reported in the press, apparently, credit Alan Warren. Journalists in the 1970s already knew what kind of subjects were out of the bounds. Princess Margaret's antics and mystique were well-worn gossip in Fleet Street, as were the sexual productivities of the other politicians in high-profile societies. But like the often very public behavior of pedophiles such as Lord Boothby and MP Tom Dibridge, anything that could damage the establishment was already reported by mutual agreement. Hey Mike, how you doing? Even today, pedophile scandals are rumbling on at the BBC and Westminster. Revelations continue that many high-profile establishment figures were routinely protected in a conspiracy of silence preventing them from being exposed. Elaborate bank robberies seem superfluous in the circumstances. What do you guys think? Do you think that's what the Bank Street robbers were all about? Tamara, I bet they worked with the royal family and something went wrong and they tried to get them back. Could be. Could be, Tamara. I'm doing good, Mike. Thanks for asking. It could be. I mean, there's just a lot of wishy-washy shit going on there. Like, they had money to get all that equipment. That's a big thing. I mean, that's a big thing to drill a hole to the vault from, what, 2 or 3 stories or, shops over. Why did nobody hear the drilling? That's what I want to know. But definitely how the police handled that, the D-notice, the hush-hushness of it, and the bank robbers, no matter, even they went to jail, they were always, it sounds like they were basically always taken care of. Or do you think it was covering up something else? Like we do over here with the government. Something big is going on, so it draws our attention to something else. I don't know. Something to think about, definitely. Here is the story of that. I'll share that in the link in the chat so you guys can read it. But yeah, something isn't quite right about it. Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Tamara. I definitely agree with you. Something. I don't know exactly what, but something. It just ain't right. So the next story we're talking about mysterious moon-eyed people, an ancient subterranean race in conflict with the Cherokee. So this comes from ancientpages.com. And this is all about the moon. Hey, Magical Empress, how are you? Welcome. So it says, I'm doing good, thanks for asking. How are you? Like I said, this comes from ancientpages.com, and I'll, of course, at the end, share the link in the picture. The Cherokee recall a white-skinned race that lived in the lands before they arrived. The group of very unusual beings were known as moon-eyed people. Cherokee legend tells the moon-eyed people were of small stature and had pale white skin and blonde hair and blue eyes. They were called moon-eyed because they had very sensitive eyes and were unable to see in daylight. So was this a race of albino people? Next Tuesday, I know, I am so sorry about that. I know, my computer was just like, that's it, you're done. um, I apologize so much about it. For real. So next Tuesday hey, Freaky Geek. So next Tuesday when I do readings again, come on in, and wherever I am on the list, if I'm reading somebody, I'll do yours next. I'm going to do that for you, Star, and Chrissy. You guys were the last 3 on the list, and I feel so bad for that. Thank you, Ron, for the ice cream. So we'll bump you right up, if that makes sense. Oh, I did 4 hours yesterday? Wow. That's crazy. No, I got cut off. I think it was like 2.5. Close to there anyway. And my computer was like, you're done. I know. You see how you are, Freaky Geek? Oh, Ron's mad now. He had to get himself his own coffee. Good job, Freaky Geek. Freaky Geek's like, I don't do coffee, man. So, all right. So, again, so I wonder if these were a race of albino people, right? They could, however, see very well at night since they're mysterious. I mean, I'm friends with the albino. I know how it works. He's not like blind. He just, when it's light out, it's hard for him to see. He's got the white hair. He doesn't have the red eyes, but he has blue eyes, but they're very light in color. Cool dude, very intelligent, love him to death. Um, but yeah, it's very hard for him. I mean, he's legally he's blind. But it's just he has to focus differently. The light bothers him. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he technically he is blind, but let me tell you, he knows how to do. I mean, I'm sure he's what 50 now. I'm sure he was a real good friend back in New York. So, anyway, um, they could, however, see very well at night. Since these mysterious ancient people were blinded by the sun, they were forced to live underground taverns. This is the picture is Fort Mountain Stone Fortification ruins. So apparently, underneath there is where they used to live. The Moon-Eyed people were physically totally different from the Cherokee, and when these two races encountered each other, war broke out. The Moon-Eyed people were first mentioned in a 1797 book by Benjamin Smith Barton. Later documentation tells of similar accounts, such as an 1823 book, The Natural and Aboriginal. I have to think about that word. I know how to say it, but I have to think about it before I say it. History of Tennessee, which tells a band of white people who were killed out or driven out of Kentucky and West Tennessee. Who were the mysterious ancient Moon-Eyed people? According to the Cherokee, the Moon-Eyed people lived in Appalachia until the Cherokee expelled them. Appalachia. The Moon people are said to have built some ancient structures in the area. One of them is Fort Mountain in Georgia. It's an 850-foot long zigzagging stone wall that is 12 feet thick and up to 7 feet high. Wow. Ron says, wouldn't surprise me, Shadows. Many cultures have stories about people living underground. And they do. We still continue to hear them today. People think that people live underground as well. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Freaky Geek says, oh, that's why they are called moon-eyed people. They're actually albinos. I don't know that for sure. That's my assumption, And you know how everything goes with assuming. They make an ass out of you and me. So take it with a grain of salt. I don't know if they're albino. It's just the way they explain them. It seemed like they were albino. Um, Ron said, just like the Cherokee in stories about a fire mountain in the Smoky Mountains. Right? Yeah. Yeah, definitely. According to the Moon Cherokee, no, I already read that part. The age of the wall has never properly determined, but according to some sources, it was built around 400 to 500 AD. Who really built Fort Mountains is still a mystery. Cherokee legends tell the ancient structure was raised either by moon-eyed people of Madoc or Welsh prince who came to America in 1170. Former Tennessee Governor John Sevier wrote that the Cherokee leader, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounce this, Akanastata, told him in 1873 that the local mounds had been built by white people who were pushed from the area by the adjacent Cherokee. According to Sevier, Akanastata confirmed that these were Welsh from across the ocean. The identity of the moon-eyed people is unknown. Who were these mysterious small-plated beings who lived underground? One theory suggests that these people were of Welsh origin. I wonder if I'll have to ask him. Being descendants of Maddox colonists. An ancient structure almost identical to Fort Mountain can be found in the DeSoto Falls, Alabama. It is possible it was built by these Welsh settlers after they left Fort Mountain. This marker tells the tale of two legends that surround the fort. It's located near the stone tower. Credit goes to David Tibbs, HMDB. Now they have proved there is a volcano there. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why everybody should really, Hey, I hear you, Tamara. I'm Seneca, so it's where my cheekbones come in. It's where my high cheekbones come in. There are two Cherokee legends that could shed some light on this ancient mystery. One legend reveals that the Cherokee defeated the Moon people and drove them from their homeland during a full moon. Another version tells the Cherokee chased the Moon-eyed people away from their home in Hiwassee, a village near what is now Murphy, North Carolina West, into Tennessee. Very cool. According to, apparently this is the Cherokee chief. I'm not going to try and say his name again because I feel like I'm butchering it and I feel bad. According to both Cherokee legends, the Moon-eyed people went underground. That's all we know. The Moon-eyed people and their fate remains an unsolved ancient mystery. After all this time, we may never find out what happened to the white-skinned race because the truth lies buried somewhere in the antiquity and may never be unearthed. Nevertheless, the legend of the Moon-eyed people and their encounters with the Cherokee is truly fascinating. And again, this is from Ancient Pages, and I'll put that in the link, I'll put the link in the chat. Pretty interesting, though. Pretty interesting. I'm thinking, Ron, that it's one and the same. I would probably guess yes. Found near DeSoto Falls. Does DeSoto Falls, Alabama have a... Oh no, I don't know what I was going to ask. But I would think so. DeSoto Falls? Let's see. We'll look it up. Let's see. DeSoto Falls, Alabama. Is a waterfall located on the West Fork of the Little River near Mentone, Alabama, in DeSoto State Park. Does that sound familiar, Ron? Mentone? It says south of DeSoto State Park, 45. No, that's Little River Falls. Never mind. Yeah, I don't see much more close to Georgia. Okay. Okay. So there you go. If you go exploring there, let me know. I want to know what you find. Take some pictures and share with us. So my last story is about the Men in Black. I was reading. Yes, and it has the guide stones. So we have some creepy encounters with the Men in Black. You've never seen a waterfall in person, Tamara? I used to jump off a waterfall. And then my son, Mr. Minkster, who comes in here once in a while, jumped off the very same waterfall I did, and I did not like that at all, hearing that. Yes, the Men in Black stories. Waterfalls are beautiful. I'm surrounded by waterfalls. If you go and look in my playlist of I'm lucky enough to live here or something like that, I have my I'm surrounded by waterfalls. Yeah, there you go. Freaky geek. Every time I do dishes, I see waterfalls when I pour it out of my glass and in the cup. Exactly, yeah. Mike. The Moon-Eyed People are noted in 1968 historical marker in Fort Mountain State Park, Chatsworth, Georgia. Cool. Ruby Falls in Chattanooga. I didn't say Ruby Falls. I said Little, it was like Little Wright Falls or something like that. Thank God the washer stopped down there. My head hurts from hearing it. That's good to know, though, Mike. Thank you for sharing that. That's pretty cool. All right, should we get into some Men in Black inspired by scary stories of people who have seen UFOs? This comes from the HuffPost.com. So when Men in Black 3 opens up, well, we already know Men in Black 3 has already opened up and has already been, let's see. But there are many people who say they've been victimized by and live in fear of the real MIBs. And those stories, told for decades, are just as terrifying as they are detailed. Ever since the 1950s, long ago, before the first Men in Black movie hit the silver screen in 1997. Wow, has it been that long? Man, I feel old. Men dressed in identical black suits, hats, and sunglasses, claiming to be government agents, have reportedly shown up in black cars at homes or offices of people who reported UFO sightings. According to those who were paid these unwelcome visits, the Men in Black threatens or harass the eyewitness into staying quiet about the UFO encounters. 1947. Harold Dull reportedly seeing a group of UFOs while on his boat in Washington's Puget Sound. Soon after, he said he was approached by a black-suited individual who threatened him and his family if he ever talked again about the UFO sighting. 1967, Robert Richardson was driving his car at night in Toledo, Ohio, when he was hit by something, which he claimed then vanished. He found a piece of metal that he believed originated from the mysterious thing he hit. A few days later, two men wearing black hats and sunglasses and driving a black 1953 Cadillac visited Richardson in home at 11 p.m. to ask questions. A week later, two other men arrived dressed in black suits and asked Richardson to turn over the metal to them. When he informed them that he had sent it for an analysis, he said they threatened to harm his wife if he didn't get it back. He never heard from them again. But why? Who were, and in some cases still are, these strange individuals who give out seemingly meaningless warnings about UFO sightings and try to intimidate people? They are the archetypal sinister person who turns up on doorsteps, specifically in relation to a UFO encounter, said Nick Redfern, author of The Real Men in Black, New Pages, 2011. People who have been visited by the Men in Black tend to fall into two categories. One is the UFO witness, and the other category is researchers who have been visited, Redfern told the Huffington Post. After digging closely into the history of many reported MIB encounters, Redfern, pictured below, that's him, thinks he has a good handle on what may be going on. What we have, I'm pretty sure, is a sort of covert department or office or personnel within the official infrastructure. These are people who dress in black deliberately and go around and threaten people in certain circumstances related to UFOs, he suggested. And they look like what you see in the Men in Black movies. They look like agents of the government, like Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. And they issued veiled warnings not to talk about the UFO encounters. But then there are creepier Men in Black stories that emerge, like the one told by Dr. Herbert Hopkins, the respected family physician from Old Orchard Beach, Maine, when he was home alone the night of September 11th, 1976. At the time, Hopkins was studying a UFO incident. The phone rang, and a man's voice identified himself as a representative of New Jersey UFO organization, which turned out to be phony. He wanted to know if I could come here and talk to him, or if he could come here and talk to me about UFO cases. He also asked if I was alone, and I said yes. Hopkins told this reporter in 1978 for a story broadcast on the NBC radio. When Hopkins walked from the phone to the door and turned on the light, the man was already coming up the steps. If he was even close as across the street or next door telephoning, he could not have possibly gotten here as soon as I did to turn the lights on for him, recalled Hopkins. When the stranger came in, Hopkins was struck by his appearance. I want to say pyramids. He wore a neatly tailored black suit, black shoes, black socks, a white shirt with a black tie, and wore a black derby. You don't see derbies very often, and I thought to myself, this guy looks like an undertaker. When he sat down, he removed his derby. This character was as bald as an egg. He didn't even have eyebrows or eyelashes. It looked like he had smooth plastic skin, like a doll, except it was a dead white color, Hopkins said. His lips were brilliant, ruby red, and he spoke in expressionless, monotone, scanning speech. He constructed no phrases and sentences, just a sequence of words evenly spaced. His voice was completely passive, with no inner inflection or intonation. Yeah, as you were hearing it from a machine that can talk. And I'll tell you, I'll let you know what my take is. During the short time they were together, Hopkins and the strange man talked about the UFO cases that the doctor had been investigating. Hopkins also noticed a very odd thing about this man in black. He sat perfectly motionless and wore gray suede gloves. He'd idly brush his lips with the back of the glove, and when he put his hands down, the back of his glove was bright red, and the red on his mouth was smeared. So I knew he was wearing lipstick. Then I could see that his mouth was perfectly straight slit. Apparently he did not what we call lips, so the lipstick was put on as like a decoy. His mouth was like a ventriloquist's dummy. Yeah, Freaky Geek, it does sound like a robot, doesn't it? The classic MIB story gets even stranger. The odd visitor told Hopkins to take a coin out of his pocket and hold it in the palm of his hand. Now I remember this story. He said, "Watch the coin," and it started to develop a silver color instead of a copper. And then the silver became bluish, and the penny was getting quite like fuzzy or out of focus, blurred, and then it was simply gone. It slowly dematerialized. Following the coin magic, the stranger ordered the doctor to destroy all the information he had gathered about UFO cases. As he spoke his last words, I noticed his speech was slowing down. His words became slower and farther spaced. He slowly got to his feet, unsteadily, and he said very slowly, "My energy is running low. Must go now. Goodbye." Just like that. Hopkins said that the MIB, whoever or whatever it was, clung tightly to the rails as he went down the steps outside, placing both feet on each step, and then disappeared around the corner into a bright light. When the chilling encounter was over, a terrified, intimidated Hopkins destroyed all traces of any UFO material he had. Creepy story. You know, I've heard of many UFO or Men in Black. I've, read a lot about the MIB. If for those who, Freaky, I know you're one of them, and Ron, I think you were in and out. When I was showing Chad Kalix, you would have hit it, not destroyed it. I don't know. When you get... the Men in Black give off an eerie, more so than a UFO, or probably seen an alien. Men in Black give off a freaky vibe. I'm flashing you. Oh. Stupid. You know what it is? It's OBS. I downloaded the update, and I've had nothing but problems with it. So I gotta go. Am I still flashing you? Do. But when I was showing Craig on the last part, Craig, who is the one that's from Australia, had encounters with the MIB, and his story was basically he could, like, all the while the person was talking to him, this MIB was talking to him, like he couldn't move. And he goes, so half of the conversation, I wasn't even listening to him. I was thinking in my own mind, why can't I move? You know what I mean? He goes, I know he was talking about my kids. I know he brought up where they went to school, which is freaky, right? But he said, all the time I'm thinking, why can't I move? What is wrong with me? You know? So it's crazy. And I got a ringing in my ears. Great, the MIB are coming for me next. Here is This is one of my favorite stories from Dan Aykroyd, Ghostbusters. Um, his stories, his encounter. You're being flashed again? God bless America. Well, hopefully you can hear this. Let me go ahead and get to the
extraterrestrial related.
Do you believe, and
full screen's unavailable. Sorry guys, full screen is unavailable.
describe, do you believe that your show was shut down
Can you hear that?
for national security reasons? And tell us a little bit about what happened with the show out there.
Well, what happened? We sold the show to Sci-Fi Channel, and it was called Out There, and I basically interviewed all of the people that I admired in various fields of study, like Colin Andrews from the Crop Circle movement, Linda Moulton Howe, the expert on cattle mutilations, John Mack. And let me just put a pin in things right there, because John Mack has taken the study of abductions, UFOs, right out through the other side, and he's going, yes, we know they're here, we know they're coming, we know people have been taken, we know there's experimentation going on, we know people have been told about agendas. What we now have to do is use that as a key and as a motivation to socially transform this planet to a more peaceful, more loving, more tolerant state. So his movement, the movement for social change, has just accepts as a fact abductions, UFOs, interplanetary intervention, and what he's doing is taking it out through the positive side of it and saying, now we must use it to socially transform, and I think his message is great. But I talked to him, I talked to the Allagash guys who were taken in the canoe in that trip in Pennsylvania. The last show we did, I had both Bassett, who has the UFO time clock, and then Greer. Both Bassett and Greer were there. They were my two guests for the day. Well, the show was canceled that afternoon. And I was outside, before I knew it was canceled, in between the interviews. And I was outside, and Britney Spears called me because she wanted me to appear on Saturday Night Live with her. And so I was outside having a cigarette, the phone rang. Oh, Brittany, how you doing? Oh, sure, of course I will. I turned away like this. I turned back, and there was a black Ford across the road, a black Ford sedan. And I was trying to look at the plate, and the plate seemed kind of like fuzzy, and I was, definitely a police car. And two guys were there, and a big, big, tall guy got out of the back seat, and he stood in the street on 42nd Street it was. We were at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue, and he looked right at me. And literally, I was on the phone. Hey, oh, sure, of course I'd like the show. Saw the Ford, went back like this, turned back like a half second later, and it was gone. And that car did not go past me. It did not make a U-turn, because I would have seen 42nd Street. I would have seen that thing take a U-turn and go away. That car vanished. That car was a cloaked vehicle of some type. And whether this was like a warning to me, because the guy got out of the back seat, gave me a real dirty look. That car vanished. I know what I saw. And it was just this fast. It was, oh, hi, Brittany, sure. Oh, of course, I'd love to do. Guy gives me a dirty look. Oh, well, sure. Car gone. That's what happened. And then 2 hours later, we were told we were not to continue taping, and the show was canceled, and none of them would air. I don't know. I don't know. Was that an MIB experience? Black helicopters, military abductions that happen. Sometimes people are taken and they talk about then being visited by, military personnel and debriefed about their abduction. Was it technology associated with some of these beings that are visiting that wanted to warn me off, or that wanted to give me verification that I was on the right track? I don't know. But I do know I did turn back a second later, and it takes so long for an automobile accelerating from 0 to 40 miles an hour to reach the corner of 8th Avenue and 42nd Street going past me, and then pulling a U-turn and going out towards Times Square. I would have seen that car. And I looked around. I was looking for that then. It was gone. So, I don't know. The tapes exist. I have them. We're going to try to repackage them. We might put them out on DVD.
So that was his story. There's more to that story, though. I mean, if you look, if you look up Dan Aykroyd, UFOs or MIB, there's more to that story. He does have more encounters and stuff like that. I mean, it's very wild, and it's wild to hear him talk about stuff like that. And I remember when I first saw it, I was blown away by it. I don't even know where I saw it. It was years and years ago, but I was blown away by it, and it's been my favorite story ever since. So this goes on to say, so who are the real men in black? Who have scared people for decades? Are they government agents trying to spread disinformation about UFOs? But for what purpose? The MIB movie is very entertaining, but they portray one angle of a mystery that is actually two-pronged, said Redfern. You got this government conspiracy angle, but you also got this gothic archive. Hi, Chantilly Lace. Thank you so much for the ice cream. I appreciate it. Welcome. How you doing? You got this gothic archaic mystery that ties in as much with the occult and paranormal as the flying saucers. And that, of course, comes, like I said, from the Huffington Post. I will put that in the chat so you guys can read it. So what do you guys think the men in black are? I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. I'm doing good. So what do you guys think? Do you have an opinion on what the men in black are? I mean, I think, my personal opinion, I don't know. I go back and forth when it comes to them. I go back and forth. Sorry, moving everything around here. I go back and forth to where I think they are a part of our government, right? But then I go back to talking or thinking about Ingrid Cole when it comes to the Mothman and how he was supposedly on MIB. And he explained a little bit what MIB are about and stuff. But he was a nice one. And if you don't know who Ingrid Cole is, he was situated a whole with the Mothman prophecies and stuff. And then I go back and I think that it's actual aliens not wanting us, kind of like they how do I explain this? They don't want us to, like, when people find flying saucers or whatnot, I think one of it is maybe from outer space, but another one is our governments. So I go behind or back and forth between whether the MIB are like real aliens or if they're working for the government. Do you know what I mean? Like they're hiding their alien race. If they're alien, probably freaky geek aliens don't want us to drive in space because they see how bad we are in land and water. Exactly. Yeah, that is true. That is true. But like I go back and forth when it comes to Men in Black. And I don't know. What do you guys think? Does anybody want to come up and share their experiences or stop screen share? There we go. Or had any experiences with, anything we've talked about, or what's your take on anything we've talked about today? What you guys think? And why did it not go through on the... Oh, there we go. Okay, it did. If you guys, anybody wants to come up and chit chat for a little bit, we got a few minutes. If not, that's cool too. But yeah, I mean, definitely good stories today. You guys have an opinion about Jack the Ripper? Who do you think Jack the Ripper was? What else? The Moon-Eyed People. Those are really cool. I I got more coming up Friday. I'll tell you some of the stories I'm working on for Friday, which is there's a woman that grows hair out of her mouth. Pretty weird, right? I had this all written down, by the way, and then my computer froze and I had to restart everything. You know how we do. My electronics is like, what the hell? Let's break down right for, that's why I was a little bit late today. Did you know that vampire bats French kiss? Yes, they do. And it's even weirder stuff after that. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about there's thousands of years missing from our... Hold on, let me bring it up so I say it right. Yes, they do what, Tamara? Oh, vampire bats. Never mind. I get you now. Millions of years are missing from Earth's geological history, and the scientists think they know why. We got that story, and then, of course, a couple new stories that'll come out probably tomorrow or Friday. So we're working on those. Interesting. Yeah. Tomorrow, of course, being game day. Gonna get the games on. I'm writing down don't worry, I am writing down all the games so we can pick and go through. I'm writing down the name of the games and kind of what they're about. So we know, So we can pick what games we want to, you guys can pick what games we want to play. All right. Did you guys like the show? I hope so. So again, tomorrow is game day. Thank you guys so much for watching. I think I'm going to end it here. Always remember, is bat, you never know, Tamara, could be. Your spirit animal could be a bat. I believe we take, how do I explain it? I think we all have animal instincts inside of us. They're different, Freaky Geek. Each one is different. And so those things, like those instincts, need to come out of us sometimes, if that makes sense. I think our spirit totems, spirit animals, whatever you want to call them, whatever your belief is, they change, just like our spirit guides as we level up. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Let me go ahead. My credits probably aren't going to roll. Nope, of course they're not. Because I had to restart the stream. So let's go ahead and get them started. Thank you all so much for watching, for liking, for subbing, for sharing out. You guys are awesome. I appreciate them so much. Or appreciate you so much, I should say. Just remember, if you do have a paranormal, cryptid, or UFO story, send them to my email or anywhere on social media. All the links should be down in the description. And if you do send a story, let me know if I could use your name or if you want to be anonymous. Because I'll obviously take your name out of it. That's okay, Freaky Geek. I want to thank everybody that came into chat today, talking. That's not what I was looking for. Freaky Geek, Little Hot People Tamara, Ron, Chantilly Lace came in, Carrie came in. You guys are awesome. I thank you guys for hanging out with me, as always. Thank you for everybody who is watching and listening to the stream. I can't thank you guys enough. Remember, we do go live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m., which is 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you're listening on the podcast, we do go live on Facebook, Twitch, Mixer, Facebook. Did I say Facebook? YouTube, DLive, Twitter, all there. And if you didn't catch the live stream, I do upload these to all the podcast networks. So wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, you will find this show there under the same name of Shadows of the Moon. I love you all, guys. I love you guys so much. I appreciate you being here. And until tomorrow, much love. Take care. And please, guys, be safe. Love you guys. Thank you so much.